the ranger of the whole forest, remembering the wholeness of who you are. Riley Hart had the entire North Valley to herself that morning, and somehow she still felt crowded on the inside. At 22, she was one of the youngest park rangers in Pinecrest National Forest, all green uniform and sturdy boots and radio clipped at her shoulder. On paper, her life looked exactly like the dream she'd written in a high school notebook. But as she hiked past the old fire road, the familiar knot sat in her chest like a stone. "Another perfect day in paradise," she muttered, nudging a pine cone off the trail with her boot. Her radio crackled, but the channel stayed quiet. Good. No one needed anything from Ranger Hart right now. What bothered her wasn't the work. She loved answering questions from tourists, guiding kids on owl walks, patching up scraped knees. What bothered her was the private voice that showed up when the forest went still. "Is this all you are? Just the girl in the hat with the badge?" The question drifted in again as she reached Overlook Ridge. The valley poured out below pines like green waves, the river flashing silver between rocks, sunlight spilling over everything. She should have felt awe. Instead, the knot tightened. Riley dropped her pack and sat on the warm granite, hugging her knees. A hawk rode a current above her, easy and effortless, like it trusted the invisible air without needing to see it. "I wish I knew how to do that," she whispered. Her mind translated the wish into something harsher. "You should be grateful. You've got a job people would kill for. Stop wanting more." The thought felt heavy, like someone dropping a wet blanket over her shoulders. Her chest squeezed. She frowned. Why did some thoughts feel like that? No one had ever explained that part of being human. Riley drew a slow breath and closed her eyes. Behind her eyelids, the forest softened into a blur of colours and sounds, wind sliding through needles, a distant woodpecker, the river's hush far below. For a brief moment, the knot loosened. Then her brain jumped in with its usual list. Rent, student loans, her mum's text from last night. When are you going to get a real career path figured out? The knot returned, sharper this time. She opened her eyes and exhaled. "Okay, what is wrong with me?" The forest, unbothered, carried on being itself. As she stood to leave, something on the ground caught her eye, a scrap of weather-worn paper tucked against a rock, corner fluttering. Litter usually annoyed her, but this felt oddly placed, almost like it had been set there. She picked it up. The page had clearly been torn from a book. Along the top, in small print, she could just make out, "The Wholeness of Who You Are, Part 1. Her eyebrows rose. Most of the text was smudged from rain, but one paragraph near the centre remained readable, the ink stubbornly intact. "You are more than the part of you walking around in a physical body is less than #0. 2# is greater than you are a larger, non-physical, high-vibration part as well, and together you are one whole being." Riley read the lines twice. The words did something the lectures in college never had. They didn't explain her like a specimen. They felt familiar. "More than the part walking around," she murmured, glancing down at her own boots. "So there's another part of me, not in the uniform?" Something in her chest gave a tiny, surprising yes, like the soft click of a lock opening. It was subtle, but she felt it. A lightness, the way her shoulders eased, the way her breath deepened. She noticed, "That feels better," she said aloud, testing the idea, "thinking that I'm more than this role." As soon as she went back to, "Yeah, but you probably just made that up," her body tensed again. Tight, small, she stared at the paragraph, heart thudding. What if these feelings were not random? What if they were some kind of inner compass, her own personal yes and no, about how close her thoughts were to that larger, whole version of herself? The idea landed with quiet certainty. "Emotional guidance," she said slowly, trying the words, like, "My feelings are telling me when I'm lined up with the bigger me and when I've wandered off." A breeze lifted the edge of the page, as if the forest approved. Riley folded the scrap carefully and slid it into her chest pocket, right over the knot that was starting to unwind. "Okay," she told the trees, "let's experiment." On the hike back toward the ranger station, she played with thoughts the way she usually played with trail trivia for kids. "I'm just a temporary employee who could be replaced tomorrow." Her stomach dipped, heavy off. "I'm a unique expression of something bigger, walking around this forest as one way it experiences itself." Warmth moved through her ribs like sunlight. She blinked in surprise. Same trail, same boots, same future unknown life. Only the thoughts were different, and her body reacted instantly. By the time she reached the clearing near the station, a pattern was impossible to ignore. Self-critical, fearful thoughts made her feel closed and small. Thoughts that assumed she was more than her circumstances made her feel open, spacious, and though she hesitated to use the word powerful, maybe this is what the page meant by high vibration, she realized. Not some mysterious glow, but that feeling of aliveness when she thought in ways that matched her whole self. The rest of the day unfolded as usual on the outside. She gave directions to a couple arguing over a trail map. She restocked brochures. She filled out a maintenance request for the squeaky cabin door. On the inside, she was running tiny experiments. "I'm stuck here until something better shows up." Tight. Off. Wherever I am, my larger self is with me. And this place is part of something meaningful I don't fully see yet. Relief. Soft expansion. By closing time, Riley felt like she discovered a secret feature in a familiar app, something that had always been there, quietly unused. That night, in her small cabin, she sat on the edge of her bed with the torn page in her hands. The backside held more legible text from part 2. When you forget the wholeness of who you are and believe you are only the limited physical part, you feel fear, lack, and powerlessness. When you remember your wholeness, you naturally feel worthiness, ease, and confidence, because you are lined up with the truth of yourself. Riley traced the words with her thumb. "Forget and remember," she whispered. "So maybe nothing's wrong with me. I just keep forgetting." The realization landed with a gentle thud in her chest. Her whole life, she'd assumed the tightness meant she was broken or behind or not enough. What if it had been the opposite? What if it was her larger self tugging on her sleeve, saying, "Hey, you're thinking smaller than the truth again"? She lay back, staring at the ceiling. "Okay," she said to the quiet room. "Bigger me, larger part, whatever you're called, if you're really there, help me remember tomorrow." The next morning, her alarm went off at 5:30. Usual groan, usual temptation to pick up her phone and scroll straight into everyone else's lives. She caught herself, hand hovering over the screen. How would the whole me start the day? She wondered. A new thought floated up, gentle and certain. This is the best day of my life because I get another day to explore who I really am. The sentence wasn't hers. She could feel that. It came with that same inner click of rightness as the lines on the page. Her chest loosened, a quiet yes spreading through her. She sat up, swung her legs over the side of the bed and repeated it aloud. This is the best day of my life because I get another day to explore who I really am. Saying it didn't fix everything, she still had laundry piled on the chair and a sink full of dishes. But the sentence pointed her attention toward the part of her that felt steady beneath all of that. All morning, as she checked campsites and logged wildlife sightings, Riley treated her emotions like trail markers. If she thought, "I have to figure out my entire future right now," the tightness flared low vibration. Out of alignment, if she shifted to, "My only job right now is to line up with my wholeness in this moment," the tightness eased higher vibration. Closer to truth. She began to notice something else too. When she felt better, small good things seemed to find her more easily. A family at Site 14 spontaneously offered her a fresh cinnamon roll. A lost kid's dog ran straight to her instead of deeper into the trees. Her supervisor, usually brisk and distracted, actually paused to say, "Good work on that trail report yesterday, Hart." It was as if the forest responded to the frequency she was carrying, just the way the hawk responded to the air currents. Standing at the trailhead that afternoon, she looked up at the sweeping pines and felt a surprising kinship with them. "You guys don't forget what you are, do you?" she said softly. "You just stand there, being the whole of yourselves." The wind moved through the canopy with a sound like distant applause. Her radio buzzed. "Hart, you near Overlook Ridge?" "About 10 minutes away," she replied. "Got a hiker reporting they're a bit turned around off the ridge. Can you check it out?" On it, as she headed up the path, the old anxiety tried to creep in. What if I can't find them? What if something's wrong? What if... She caught the tightening in her chest immediately. "Okay, that's the small me voice," she said under her breath. "The one that thinks I'm alone and underpowered." She paused, hand on a tree trunk, and deliberately shifted her thought. "There's a larger part of me that sees this whole forest from above," she said quietly. "It knows where I am, where they are, and how to bring us together. My job is to stay steady enough to hear the impulses." Relief flowed in like a deep breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Her stride lengthened 5 minutes later. As the trail curved, she felt a nudge turn left, off the main path. There was no visible sign, just a clear inner this way. "Trust it," she told herself. "The whole you is guiding the walking around you." She stepped off the trail, weaving between boulders and saplings. "Hello?" she called. "Park Ranger here," a shaky voice answered from somewhere ahead. "Over here." 30 yards later, she found a young man perched on a rock, ankle awkwardly wrapped in his hoodie. Nothing life-threatening, just a bad twist and some fear. As she helped him back toward the main trail, he kept thanking her. "I don't know how you found me so fast," he said. Riley smiled, feeling the quiet hum of alignment still steady in her chest. "Honestly," she said, "I just followed good directions." That night, alone again in her cabin, she sat cross-legged on the floor with the torn pages spread out in front of her. She thought about the girl she'd been a week ago, believing she was only the small self in the uniform, at the mercy of circumstances, with a knot of anxiety she didn't understand. She thought about the woman who had walked off-trail that afternoon, guided by something wider than her 5 senses, feeling calm in a situation that used to send her spiraling. Maybe, she realized, the difference wasn't that she had suddenly become someone else. Maybe she had simply stopped arguing with the truth of who she already was. She picked up the scrap labelled "The Wholeness of Who You Are," Part 2, and read the last clear line at the bottom. "You never become more whole. You only become more aware of the wholeness that is already you." Riley felt the words echo through her like the call of an owl in the dark, soft, sure, impossible to unhear. She pressed the pages together, folded them neatly, and slid them into a small notebook where she kept sketches of animal tracks and wild flowers. They belonged there, she decided, part of her field guide to this life. Then she switched off the lamp and lay down, one hand resting lightly over her heart. "Thanks," she whispered to the quiet room, to the forest beyond, to the larger part of her that had been guiding her all along, for not giving up on me while I was busy thinking I was only half. The knot was gone. In its place was a gentle, steady warmth that felt like home. Riley closed her eyes, knowing that tomorrow she might forget again, for a moment. But now she had something she'd never had before, her own inner way of noticing when she slipped away from herself, and a simple choice to come back. And that, she realized as sleep began to carry her, was what it meant to walk this forest as the whole of who she was.